Purple Heart Homes presents Putting the Pieces Back Together, a forum for veterans and the community to connect. Here are your hosts, veterans John Gallina and Brad Borders.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
You are not John Gallina.
I am not. I don't think I'm fooling anybody here.
He is on hiatus, sabbatical.
Yeah.
No, not sabbatical. He's actually doing work in the great northeast of North Carolina. So
Is that right?
of the United States. He's in Rhode Island.
Oh, yeah, that's a lot different in North Carolina.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
well, my geography was a little off.
Yeah.
So, there you go. Right?
Just slightly.
Just
yeah.
slightly,
Maybe you were just intimidated by today's guests.
I am. We are surrounded by police officers in here today. What did you do?
I was just getting ready to ask you that same question.
Well, I thought the statute of limitations was up, but evidently it's not.
Yeah, the stories we were telling, I think they might be getting you for child endangerment there.
That's true. No, don't bring that up. Don't bring that up. That might come out later. So,
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to Putting the Pieces Back Together, presented by Purple Heart Homes. We are on our about 100 and we're close to our 100th episode. We're getting really close. So
when will that be?
I don't know, but I've got to figure it out. I got to go back and count. But it's amazing that we've been on the air this long without being removed by either the station owner or the FCC, so we're doing pretty good. And say if you want to know more about what Purple Heart Homes does, you can go to our website. That's phhusa.org. We're a 501c3 nonprofit out of Statesville, North Carolina, but we do work nationally to help veterans solve housing issues through safety and accessibility renovations. And we also build tiny homes, and we've got a pretty cool story from last week that we need to finish up.
You don't say.
I do say.
Wow.
I'm going to say it, and I do say.
Hear
and
more about this tiny home.
So, as we've been talking about, and there's been some stuff on social media about it, there was a veteran in Mississippi that had his home destroyed by a giant tornado in Winona, Mississippi in March. And we found out about this guy through a mutual friend of ours in Mississippi. With another nonprofit.
Right?
Yep, Korean War veteran, 90 years old. Was living in the house that he was born in 1933, raised his family in the same house that he grew up in, and then was living alone with his dog the night this tornado came through, and he lost everything. And so terrible set of events for this gentleman, but boy, some people got into action. And then last Monday, a veteran tiny home from Purple Heart Homes was put on a trailer. The trailer was provided by Clayton Homes, which was pretty awesome. They donated a bunch of trailers for us to move these things around.
Yeah, really great people.
Oh my gosh, yeah. In fact, the rep at Clayton Homes was one of my soldiers in Iraq 14 years ago. Yeah. So, and he still blames me for ruining his life.
I was going to say,
multiple occasions.
Even after that association, he donated those trailers to Purple Heart Homes.
He always
That's
tells
amazing.
Me, you failed.
That's the spirit right
you
there.
failed as a chaplain. So, but he said you failed as a chaplain because I turned out like I did. So
oh gosh,
he blames it all on me. So, but anyhow, last Monday that tiny home was put on a trailer. And went to Mississippi last Wednesday. I believe it was craned in place. And then last Friday, Mr. Pyron spent his first night in his new home at no cost to him because of a lot of generous people. And so we're really excited to be able to tell that story.
And if you want to see more about that, you can go to our Facebook or you can go to our website, phhusa.org, and see all about Mr. Pyron's
story. It's an incredible story. And so, he's going to live his best life out and with his little dog. Had a little poodle or something, tiny little dog that sits with him all the time.
That's awesome.
It's going to be great. So thanks to everybody that helped us do that. And so, we've got a great show in store for you today. It's something I've really been looking forward to. We have Chief David Onley. He is the chief of police here in Statesville. Been with the department for a really long time and serving our community and now in the executive leadership position. He is the commander. He's got stars on his collar, but David is also a veteran. And so, Chief, could you share? But first of all, welcome to the show. And you've got a crew of characters with you today. We'll introduce them in just a minute. But if you could share a little bit about your military background and how that has shaped your approach to law enforcement, that would be awesome.
Well, first, thank you for having us. Thank you for allowing me to bring the new guys in here today. And I'll go ahead and start off by saying it was in the Air Force. So if there's any Air Force jokes,
no.
There's lots of them. Well,
we can go ahead and bring them in now.
You have a member of your fraternity.
Just go ahead and move on past that.
Yeah, that was a suffering life you led there.
It was. It was different. We had the conversation yesterday about how different the chow halls were at the different installations. But anyway,
yeah, Lobster Day was hell.
it was bad. Yeah.
It was tough.
The lobster MREs were pretty rough too, but we made them work. But I grew up here in Statesville. I worked for my parents downtown. We had a store downtown, a Western Auto downtown for all of my young life. My brothers, everybody worked there, and I just kind of knew as I got older, going through high school, I didn't. Like a lot of people, I didn't put forth the effort I should have put forth in school at the time, and I knew I needed to grow up. And, I started talking to some Army recruiters, and then one day an Air Force recruiter showed up, and one of the ladies that lived close to me asked me to come talk to him, and sit down, talk to him, decided to go into the Air Force, was able to get a law enforcement job going in, knowing what I was going to do when I went in. Went to Lackland Air Force Base, where we all go for basic training. And when, everybody else gets to leave there to go to their schools, the cops get to go on a bus across to the other side of the base.
Oh, awesome.
So you stay at Lackland while you're there. And, I'd go through law enforcement school there, and my only funny story there is as we're getting close to graduation, you'll find out, where you're going to be sent to coming out of school. And there was 50 of us in the law enforcement class, and one person had orders to Guam, and it was me.
Oh, right.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So the day after that, they had an opportunity for K-9 openings to come up, and they had, I think, 7 or 8 slots, and a lot of people tried out. I tried out, and I really tried out because I didn't want to go to Guam.
Right.
And luckily enough, I made K-9, and that was probably the best thing for my career, I think, that ever took place in the Air Force, was having that job, because it was very unique for me because it was such a small career field. Mm-hmm. But you got to go to a lot of places and do a lot of things. I got stationed at Shaw Air Force Base for a few years. While I was there, I went on different TDYs. I did 3 months at El Paso down there working the border down at Boda, the Bridge of Americas down there.
Right.
After I got some time done there, I went over to Korea. Right before I went to Korea, I married my wife, Carrie, who was from here also. And I went over to Korea, did a year there, came back, did my last 4 up at Langley in Virginia, and just kind of got sent everywhere up there.
How many years total were you in?
7.
7 years.
7 years.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service, bro.
I appreciate it. But I think, and you talk about what it brings to law enforcement, I think the camaraderie, us before self. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest hurdle it is when you come out of the military and come back into civilian life.
Yeah, it can be weird.
It is very weird.
Yeah.
You lost that me. It's not all about me. It's about all of us.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that was the big slap in the face I got when I came back. You have trust in people. In the military, your guys, you were together, you trusted each other. You got their back, they got yours. And sometimes when you come out in the civilian world, it's about me and more about what can I do to get that next promotion? What can I do? And there can be a tendency where people will take advantage of you, trying to take care of the group as opposed to just me.
Correct. Well, the military is not completely immune to that system
Agree.
as well.
Agree.
Right?
They cover as officers, don't they?
Hey.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you hurt my feelings. Isaiah, someone to file a hurt feeling report. I'll file that in triplicate. Thank you very much.
Oh wow! I don't know that sound.
So how did those 7 years in the Air Force how did that influence your leadership style when it came to, you made the transition. Was it immediate transition, 7 years in the Air Force, then straight into law enforcement, civilian law enforcement?
Yes, while I was getting out, I started BLET and actually had to take a day off of class to drive back to Langley to do my final out processing.
Right.
So you have to both go through military police training and civilian. Is it
Yes,
different
yes.
classes?
Yeah, because they don't mesh.
Yeah, no.
Completely civilian laws and military.
Right.
Uniform code of military justice is way different than civilian laws.
Completely different.
They're very different?
Very different.
You ever met an MP?
Unfortunately.
But I will tell you, too, though, you had to learn a lot of civilian laws, especially depending on where you were at. I mean, in Virginia and in South Carolina, we had to understand laws because when civilians came on the base, speeding tickets, DWIs, things like that, you had to charge them under the state laws, not under UCMJ. So you had to know both.
Yeah.
But back to where we started with the leadership thing, and it's what I said before. I think it's the whole taking care of the organization. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm here. That's why I've stayed here. You feel like anything that happens, you take ownership of, and what can I do to fix it? Mm-hmm. I can retire this month.
Right.
But I'm going to stay for a while because I want the organization in a better place.
Yeah.
And we have really focused on veterans. I have sent, we joked about Sergeant Sexton earlier, but I've sent Sergeant Sexton all over North Carolina to military bases to try to recruit people coming out. We're trying to look for new ways. We're trying to look for a way to identify veterans that are from Iredell County that we know are coming close to their end of their enlistment and be able to reach out to them and say, hey, we have a job, we have a position, is this something you're interested in? What can we do to help facilitate that where it's a quicker transition? And now with the programs we have, like the recruit program, we're able to bring them out and hire them day one.
So brings up my next question. Mm-hmm. What is it that you're looking for? What's the, from civilian law enforcement standpoint, and you're looking at veterans, what do they bring to the table that is a good fit for being in civilian law enforcement? Because it doesn't matter whether they were an MP or not.
No. They understand rank structure, number one, right? And normally when somebody tells them to do something, it doesn't include a 15-minute explanation.
Right. You get a Roger that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the two biggest things, and they've got life experience.
Yes.
To me, and that's the biggest thing I'll say to anybody that wants to come into law enforcement. It's great to hire young kids. I mean, don't get me wrong, but there is a huge difference between a man, woman that's been deployed, been overseas, been through basic training, that's coming into this, and they have life experience.
Into the gas chamber.
Right. In a van or in the chamber, either one, right?
Yeah. Know about Chili Mac Road.
Right.
So,
but that's the biggest thing to me.
Okay. That's fantastic. And that's kind of the answer that I was looking for. We got about a minute coming up before we take our break, but real quickly, what would you say is the biggest difference between serving in the military and then serving in civilian law enforcement? What's the one thing that we have to kind of change the mindset on?
The military, you ride around all night with hardly anything to do checking buildings. When you come to the civilian world, it is not like that. Especially when you come to Statesville, you stay busy from the time you check on to the time you check off.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah. I mean, it is totally different, and the people you deal with in the military are normally a lot more respectful.
Yes.
And here, when you get out,
it might not be that way.
Yes, it is the totally opposite end of the spectrum. So that's the big, to me, that's the two.
Okay. All right. That's beautiful.
There you have it.
There you have it. That's right. That's right. Hey, we're listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together with our guest, Chief David Onley, and 3 of his brand new officers. And so when we come back, we're going to have the project of the week with the Metal Queen herself, Karen. We'll be back here in just 3 minutes, and stay tuned.
Well, welcome back to Putting the Pieces Together, presented by Purple Heart Homes. We're speaking today with Chief David Onley of the Statesville Police Department, and we've just having a great time out here. But before we get back to our guest, we're going to go to our project of the week.
Wow, the Metal Queen herself.
The
Welcome,
Metal
Karen.
Queen, yeah.
Hello. Karen, before you get into the project of the week, you went to a pretty cool concert.
Yeah, I went to see Godsmack, and they smacked it.
Did they?
It was very good.
Is that an acoustic band? Yeah.
Please.
Please.
No, it was really good.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
What's the next show you're going to see?
Disturbed.
Disturbed.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I
I'm sensing a theme.
Techno. I don't have any girlfriends that go to these concerts with me. They just cannot hang for some reason. I don't know why.
Tammy will go with you.
Tammy? She's not. So here's what they do. My friends send their husbands with me.
Okay.
So it's like, okay.
You keep them out of trouble.
I keep them out of trouble. I'm
That's
trustworthy.
right.
And we rock it out. So I'm usually with all the married men.
That's awesome. All right.
Yeah.
We have Karen, the husband wrangler.
She's really like babysitting them. For
I don't know.
start a
I don't know.
service,
I don't know. I kind of had to get, babysat Sunday.
Oh, is that right?
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, hit us up with that project of the week.
Yeah, so we have a Vietnam veteran, James Booker, 74 years old, out of Gastonia, so fairly local. He was in masonry most of his life, and he retired a couple of years ago. And as you can imagine, his body was giving out on him. So he was having some mobility issues like many veterans do. He needed windows. His windows were in really bad shape, so he applied to Purple Heart Homes for windows, and we sent JJ Home Renovations out to do an estimate for him on that. And they discovered that his flooring had basically disintegrated. And when they went underneath the house, they realized that the tub was about to fall through. So, Bates, our project manager over this job, let the veteran know and say, hey, you do know that you've got some pretty significant issues with your flooring. And he said, I know, but I really need windows more than anything. So let's just do that. That wasn't good enough for us. We can't have a 74-year-old Vietnam veteran walking around in his house and possibly getting in his tub and falling through the floor.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we took care of him.
Yeah.
And we were able to replace all of his flooring, shore everything up, and his windows.
That's
so,
amazing.
Yep, it was really good. Our funding partner was Lowe's for that. So
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I believe his quote was, "I am the happiest I've ever been in my life."
Oh, wow.
After this project was completed, so it was worthwhile.
I got the feel-good
is
bumps
awesome.
Yeah,
going on.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
All the feels.
Yep.
Yeah, so if you're interested in helping us, we've got probably 100 projects on the board that are not completed. And if you're interested in getting involved with us, maybe you'd like to volunteer somewhere, or perhaps you got some funding laying around that's not doing any good and not making you any interest, and maybe you'd like to have some feel-good interest and a return on your investment. You can certainly go to our website at phhusa.org and help us make stories like that come to life.
Yes.
So thank you, Ms. Karen.
Also,
My
Appreciate
pleasure.
you.
My
If
honor.
Let us
you're
know.
interested in, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I was going to say, let us know about how Disturbed goes.
I'll be taking my son to this one, so I will behave.
You better.
Yeah, I will.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank
You're
you.
the greatest.
Yeah, you
If
are.
you're interested in bringing PHH Purple Heart Homes to your neighborhood, we're looking to start chapters all across the U.S., so please contact us at phhusa.org.
What is the benefit of being a chapter for Purple Heart Homes? What does that do for people? What's in it for them?
What's in it for that? Well, it's funny. Everybody likes to help veterans. I mean, veterans and puppy dogs. That's where
Right.
it's at, right?
Yes, right.
But we always find that folks want to help folks in their own communities more than they. If you're living in Texas, maybe you don't want all your money going to Maine or California.
Right.
You'd like it to stay right there. If you're in North Carolina, you don't want it going to Florida. Not that the people in Florida are undeserving. It's just you'd like to see your neighbor helped out.
Yeah.
And so by starting a chapter, you could be part of helping those folks right next door, because our nation's stronger when we help our own communities first.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Which brings us back to our guests.
That does bring us back to our
Yeah.
guests. Yes.
They're helping out in the community every day.
Yep, Chief David Onley is in the studio with us, and he has 3 brand new, just graduated from BLET, last Friday?
Friday night.
Friday night, just graduated from basic law enforcement training here at lovely Mitchell College, I believe, puts that course on. And they are all veterans, and we're really excited to have them in the studio this morning. Chief, before we introduce our new friends and these new police officers, can you share a little bit about how veterans as police officers have an additional skill set in working with the community? What is it that they bring to the table that makes them really good at this?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Brad, that since I started here, and I'm going to go all the way back to when I started here, we had an officer, his name was Hobart Gross. He was our housing officer. He worked primarily in housing. And we had an incident where, and he was a Vietnam veteran, and we had an incident where another Vietnam veteran who was living in housing was having some crisis issues, and we were all out there, and the only person that he would talk to was Officer Gross. And I realized then the connectability that you have with veterans in the community, where a lot of them that are in crisis, a lot of them that are facing tough problems, prefer to talk to other veterans. And it's been a valuable thing for us as an agency ever since then. Sergeant Sexton, there's a lot of other veterans at the department have been able to reach out, talk to veterans in crisis, try to help them with different things, contacting, you guys to try to help them find housing, having them have that connection, but they also come to us with a sense of service to the community. They've already served their country, and this is a more focused of narrowing it down as, doing the same service for their community. And those are the guys that are normally, and I don't want to diminish anyone at the department, but they are normally the ones that are the first up to go to things, to go to your more serious, if you have reports of shots fired, if you have things of that, those are the guys that are normally there. And I think it's because, we've all had that mindset of, that's our job in life from the day you got out of basic training, that, your duty's to serve. And you have that little bit of feeling where, not to sound corny, but, you never realize it until you go through the military, the respect you have for the country, respect you have for the flag. It didn't mean anything till you go through that process and you have an understanding of what it's meant to everybody throughout generations. And it's kind of that same thing. It just goes back to that service mentality of there's a higher calling. For sure. And that calling is what these guys come to the department with as a veteran. Now the guys that are civilians will get that. Now, I'm not, saying that, but that's another thing that they bring when they get here.
Correct.
That duty to serve.
I know Sexton, New Year's Eve, just this past New Year's Eve, it was about 4 p.m, and now Sexton doesn't only call me when there's a crisis.
Right.
He literally will call me and just say, "Hey, how you doing?"
Right. He does. Me too, all the time.
But this was a crisis, and one thing that I really appreciated about that day, it's a long story, but there was a veteran that was in crisis, in a public space here in town. It was raining. He didn't have any shoes on, and it just happened that I knew the veteran, and. And I got there were multiple law enforcement officers and EMS, and this poor guy was just in a world of hurt, had some relationship issues going on, and he was in a bad state, had called 911 on himself, right? He's in a public space. He was kind of freaking people out, right? Freaking regular folks out trying to go get a meal or something. But Sexton was like, he was so compassionate with this guy, and but yet also still remained a law enforcement officer, right? Because there's certain things that have to be abided by. And I really just watched him, kind of marveled at how he looked after this guy, got this guy the resources that he needed, and we were able to help him, get him what he really needed was a good night's sleep. And he had just been up for like 4 days, right? And he was sleep deprived and having some sleep deprived hallucinations, not drug induced, but it was and he got the help he needed and stabilized, right? And nobody went to jail, nobody got hurt,
right?
And it could have turned in had a law enforcement officer not had reacted incorrectly. in that situation, that could have been something that was going to be written about in the newspaper, and instead it wasn't, and everybody was okay. And it was probably his demeanor that created that space for that victory there.
We put a lot of effort now into crisis management and crisis training, and we send every employee at our department has to go through crisis intervention training, and that's one of the values that we've seen now is these younger guys are so much smarter than we were, and I say it every day that they do such a good job of recognizing people in crisis where 15 years ago that person would have got put in jail. Where now there are so many groups and organizations in this town that will be there to help assist somebody.
Agreed.
And having those guys know that bank of information and who to call and when to call across the board has been great for us, and I think it's helped our standing in the community of just trying to better serve the population and try to come up with long-term answers for problems instead of short-term putting them in jail. Turn around, they're going to be back out, and then there's going to be a lot of animosity towards the police each time this reoccurs. And you're also doing a disservice to the jail, to the sheriff's department, because they're housing mental issues, which is 60, 70, 80% of what's there is people in some type of mental crisis. And that's one of the things that we've been able to focus on and put a lot of effort into trying to have the officers recognize when that's going on and what they can do to assist people.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, that leads me to this. We've got you've brought some fine young men in here with you this morning, brand new law enforcement officers. If you would, just go ahead and introduce these young fellows for us.
I did. Really quick, I'll tell you that Friday night we had 7 new officers graduate from BLET that will be starting. And Mitchell Community College now does a little bit more recognition to veterans that graduate their program. And that made me think about when you had asked me a few weeks ago to be on the show, is like, what's better than to bring these guys on and introduce them to the community. But I will start with the old guy in the room. And I'll let them talk about what they've done. I brought Stephen Gordon. You can talk. Say good morning or something.
Good morning.
It's in there.
Good morning.
Kanan Levan.
Morning, y'all.
Good morning.
And last is Chris McBride. And just really quick about Chris McBride, his son is an officer already at our department. He's been there about 2.5 years.
That's awesome.
Chris was a dispatcher.
Yeah.
A former police officer, decided that he wanted to go back into law enforcement. So we sent him through the academy, and he just graduated, and he's going to be going to the road to be a police officer like his son.
That's awesome.
So does that mean that your son is going to outrank you?
It does, but we don't let him know that.
That's right. That's right. Like you just tell him that you just
At least
remember.
those 12 hours I'm there.
You
just wait till we get off, boy.
I'm going to tear you a new one.
I have many years to get paid for, so I might want to stay away from him throughout the day.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, so Stephen, tell us a little bit about, you are the evidently the oldest guy in the room now. So
That is correct.
yeah, my wife was asking, are you old enough to be a police officer? So,
Just barely.
yeah, okay. Awesome. Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I joined the National Guard when I was 17 because I wanted to go to college and get that paid for and become an officer. And then after a couple years of that, I realized I didn't want to be an officer because I'm not really smart. So I decided to stick with the Guard, and I wanted to find something else to do in the community. And I went through Statesville because I was doing training when I was trying to go into training for the police. And they were the only agency that would actually work with me while I did my training with the Army. So that's why I chose them and went with them. So
that is awesome. Yeah, and you're currently serving active in the National Guard and drilling on weekends and doing your AT and all of that good stuff. Sir. And you're a combat engineer?
Horizontal engineer. Not as cool, but still get
horizontal.
That means he builds roads.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not very bright. You got to break it down for me.
Horizontal. There's vertical and horizontal engineer.
Yeah,
vertical, you build houses and things for people to be in. Horizontal, you build roads for people to drive.
What if you make spheres?
Yeah, well, that's a different branch. That's the Air
Spherical
Force.
engineer.
All right. Kanan, tell us a little bit about yourself, buddy.
I joined the National Guard a little bit later than Gordon. I joined when I was 19 years old.
Old man.
Through Appalachian State University. And while in the National Guard, tried getting on with Appalachian State Police Department, but because of my military training, couldn't really go through. Came back with Statesville Police Department, where it's a little bit more of a flexible schedule, and they've worked with us a lot to be able to juggle the National Guard and the police training. So, been doing the National Guard for the last 2 years, and I'm excited to be starting in law enforcement.
That is fantastic.
Are y'all both still actively in the National Guard?
That's correct, yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. That's great.
That's cool. And so, okay, Chris, let's go with you. Tell us a little bit about your military career.
I joined the Marine Corps. Got out in '97.
Hoorah.
Hoorah. Hoorah, Marine Corps. My father, my brother, and my grandfather were both career. I just chose not to make it a career. I went in infantry, so it was a little hard after a few years. But
yeah, you limped your way out.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But once I did that, I got out, got married, and then decided to get into law enforcement.
And you've been doing law enforcement now how long?
Well, I did it 7 years. Unfortunately, I had to stop for a medical reason.
Okay.
But once that got better and life kind of moved on, it was a calling to get back into it.
All right. Cool. Thanks. Hey, we're getting ready to come up on a break, and we're going to come back with these fine young officers that are just joined the Statesville Police Department, and they're also veterans as well. And you're listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together, presented by Purple Heart Homes. We'll see you back here in about 3 minutes. Welcome back to Putting the Pieces Back Together, presented by Purple Heart Homes. We are joined in studio with Chief David Onley of the Statesville Police Department, a Air Force veteran, and 3 brand spanking new officers on the force who are also
factory,
veterans.
Right? That's where they make them.
Yeah, right out of the factory.
That's
it's
right.
over at Mitchell College.
Oh, yeah.
They mass produce them.
Do they really?
Yeah,
I thought it was special order.
It is special order.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you guys for being here this morning. It's fantastic. And we've got some guys that have a lot of experience in life. And Chris, the Marine Corps veteran, and some experience in law enforcement. Now we found out that his son is actually his boss.
Yeah.
And, except for when they're off the clock. His son is also an officer at the Statesville Police Department. And then we've got Kanan and Steven, who are brand new to this thing. Hey, let me ask you this. When's the start date for I mean, they already started, or
They started, we take them through a process of in-house training for about their first month. As soon as they graduate, we have to qualify them with their firearms, which Captain Bowen has already taken care of. We get all their paperwork together, send it off to Raleigh.
Got it.
And then that normally takes 3 to 4 weeks. And we'll get their paper back, and then we swear them in. We normally have a ceremony over at the at City Hall with the mayor, and have the mayor swear them in.
That's awesome. So, in the process of a brand new officer off the street, just finished BLET, is there a right seat, left seat ride kind of thing where they ride out with a...
Once they get sworn, they go through, normally if everything goes good, they'll go through a 3-month training process. Mm-hmm. That 3 months, each month they'll switch off to a different, what we call a field training officer, an FTO.
Right.
And they'll train them for that month, and if they complete everything at the end of those 3 months, then normally we kind of put them out on their own.
Got it.
And go from there.
Vehicle.
Yes, and they get, now that we've advanced in time and everything here, they get their own take-home car after they get out of training, which is a big thing.
That is a big thing.
Yes.
And, they're on their own. We may shadow them, just depends on, where they're at in their training process, but they'll be in their own car, but we'll have another officer kind of go to calls with them in a separate vehicle just to see if they need any assistance or anything. But yeah.
As soon as Devin mentioned that they were getting their own vehicles, I saw Steven just grin real big. He was thinking about that motor in that thing.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So,
we talked about that yesterday. Me and Chris did it. These guys now don't appreciate all the days we didn't have take-home cars, and now it's like it's expected.
Yeah.
And keeping up the fleet and everything and getting everybody in a car is been a challenge.
I mean, you should get a few perks as a police officer.
You're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anybody's going to put that badge on and go out there and stand between the citizens of our town and, what might be waiting on the other end ought to have a couple of perks for sure. Are there any specific programs or initiatives that y'all have in place to ensure like a smooth transition from the former life these guys are living and then to being a police officer? You mentioned the take-home car, but do y'all have? I guess as it relates to veterans, is there any specific focus that you have in transitioning them into becoming full-time police officers, or is it just the same for everybody?
It's the same. I think it's the same for everybody. I'm probably guilty of expecting more from the guys coming out of the military,
right.
And normally that holds true to form, that they're normally the ones that are a little bit quicker to pick up on things and to get through the training process. But I try to take the time to talk to each person when they start here and, just let them know throughout the process if there's anything you need, if you have problems at home, if you have problems anywhere. Everybody jokes about having an open door policy and, you don't go see the chief, and it's not like that with
right.
us now. I want you to come tell me if you got stuff going on, and if we can help you, we're going to do just like we would somebody on the street.
Right.
We're definitely going to do the same thing plus to people in our building. And anybody, sworn or civilian, if you're having issues, I tell everybody it's a common thing. Family comes first.
Okay.
And, if you have a problem at home, don't feel like that it's a burden on us. You call me, let me know what's going on, and take care of your family first.
Gotcha.
Because if we don't have their support with what you're doing, you're not going to be worth anything to me working on the street,
Yeah.
So I need you to take care of home first. If you've got issues, if we can help you, I can't tell you, we've done a lot of things to help some people out starting that have had some financial issues where we've kind of, put some things together to help them and to reach out to some people. And again, the Statesville community has been fabulous at helping support a lot of the new officers and the challenges that they're facing.
Well, I know that being a police officer is stressful enough, right? And I've always said this, since I met Chief Tom a few 15 years back, and had a relationship with the Statesville Police Department for a really long time. And in all of my interaction, I've realized this, that the stress level of law enforcement is actually, in my opinion, higher than being in the military. And I say that for this reason, and because when we're in the military, I get 20 years in, but your stress level goes up and you're prepping for deployment, and then you go and deploy, and it's stressful the whole time. But when you come home and you're done with your deployment, and you went to combat and you come home, you don't go back. It doesn't just re-happen the next day, right? Yeah, I wasn't at Fort Bragg going, okay, I'm going to get shot at today. Right, but with law enforcement, you go to work, your 12-hour shift or 10-hour shift or whatever it is. You have no idea what's going to happen that day, right? Your head's on swivel all day long. No idea what kind of thing is going to go down in town, and then your shift's over, and then you go back home, and then you get up and do it again the next day, and you don't have any idea what's coming at you, and then that's constant, nonstop. And one of the things that we saw is that a lot of law enforcement officers over years don't have time or don't make time to process those stressful events. And it creates opportunity for post-traumatic stress and the effects of that to kind of weed their way into people's lives. And if you continually do that for 5-10 years without addressing it early on, that can be debilitating, and I know the department's very cognizant of that. You guys have, so what kind of things do you do for officers to kind of keep an eye out for those stress levels, the increased traumatic events, crisis intervention, those type of things? And
it's funny you mentioned that, Brad, because we've been talking this year about trying to identify someone specific to first responders. The city has an EAP program and things like that, but the same thing I do. In this career field, it is very hard to get people come to you to admit they have or they're dealing with issues,
sure.
And that.
For sure.
And I think that there's some departments that I've talked to that's had people come in that are doing some of that crisis intervention, the things like that, with prior police or military experience that actually come in every day. They'll come ride with officers. They don't wait for somebody to come to them. They kind of seek out.
That's wonderful.
And, we haven't done a good job of that in the past. I'll take ownership of that we need to do a better job of taking care of people that are facing issues the whole gamut of things, and we want to identify ways to deal with that and help them cope through, and we'll, again, anything we can do to help them through that process. And I know I'm just going to add one thing to the end of that comment, that I know this is about us, but I cannot tell you what a benefit you've been to have you, for us to be able to call. With the Amaya Howell thing that happened, it was great to have you come out there.
That was a rough day.
And I just appreciate that.
That was a rough day. And for those who don't know, a couple of years back, we had a drive-by shooting southern part of our town and lost a really young girl, 12 years old, and her little cousin was shot too. And it was, and a couple of our officers were first to respond.
Several, yes.
And it was a rough day. And like when they all got up that day to go to work, right? They didn't go, boy, it's going to be a great day. I know there's going to be a drive-by, and I'm going to have to respond to a child that's mortally wounded. And you just never know. And Chief, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to come alongside your folks and just be friends with you guys. And it would be everything that we can do that is proactive. And building into the culture of the team of taking care of the people to your left and your right, and being aware of people that are struggling, and then having the situational awareness of knowing that when your buddy is not well and not doing great, is to be able to. Because crisis intervention doesn't have to take place with a professional,
right?
It can take place with just the guy that you're on the team with, right? And so it doesn't have to be a complex, scientific process. It can be, but if we'll take care of each other, and the thing that I am greatly appreciative of is a police officer that is resilient, and because I know, like, if something happens at my house and I call 911. I need a law enforcement officer who's right, and coming there and thinking clearly and doesn't have a lot of baggage in his back pocket, so that he can apply the necessary measures to keep me and my family safe, So, and we've actually had that happen before, right? We called 911 one time. Mark Carmona came and showed up, and made my family feel safe, and it was great, So when it comes to police officers and working with the community, do you have some specific community initiatives that your police officers do on a day-to-day basis to kind of bridge that gap with the community that sometimes may be mistrustful of law enforcement? Do y'all have anything specific that you're doing now? We
do so many things, Brad. We have, it's hard to, and I know you know Pam Navy. Oh, yeah. She kind of keeps us going with, our involvement with several of the nonprofits in the city to kind of get out there and stay involved. One of the things that we're trying to work on now as we get staffing back to a normal operating level is actually having officers permanently assigned to districts.
Yes.
So they get more involved in that community, and they know the officers and the officers know them. Kind of more of a first name basis is where you want to see that flourish to in the end. That's a big initiative that we're working on right now as we get all these new guys on the street and get them out there. That's going to be a focus of, when we have our district meetings every month, that whole group, your captain and your officers that are assigned to that district, will all be there to represent the department and, be able to speak to what's going on, have an understanding, and have a good relationship with everybody in their areas. We recently hired a new Southside coordinator, Nikayla Griffin from the Boys and Girls Club. We're getting her out there. We're having an event on June the 24th. Down at down at the park on 5th Street. Okay. We're going to have a day down there where we're going to have blow-ups, things like that, cook food, and just have a kind of a welcome her to the police department day.
That's pretty awesome.
Have everybody try to get to know her, and move on from there. I'd have to have a list here, Brad, to tell you everything. We've got a lot going through the summer that we're going to try to work on. We're going to try to work on having a camp again this summer. We're looking at starting some type of a teen academy, something to bring. That's been our biggest issue the last year and a half, is this older group of teens that's been involved in violent crime. And that's kind of where we're trying to start focusing our efforts to see what we can do. We're tied into a few grant applications right now to try to get some additional personnel that would do nothing more than focus on that group, that age group of from the school to out in the out in the field. And as we get those personnel, hopefully, we'll have that two-pronged approach of, understand what's going on in the schools, understand what's going on in the community, and try to head off some things and work on building better relationships.
Yeah, man. Good luck to you, and I know you guys are going to apply full effort on that. And
we're working on it.
We got a great town, we really do, and we love Statesville. We love our home, and we're grateful for you guys. Before we go, we've got just a few minutes left, and I want to address these new guys. So, fellas, what are you guys looking forward to about being a police officer?
I mean, it was mentioned earlier that with both the military and law enforcement, you have to have that servant heart, that servant mindset. And I think that's what we're all looking forward to the most, is being able to serve our community in the best way that we can and having these individual interactions where we can help people and to the best of our abilities.
Yeah, awesome. Stephen, you got anything to add to that?
No, that hit all the high notes pretty well. It's like being able to do something rather than an office job, being able to actually be out there and helping people. And with military, you do it more large scale. You're helping the country, you're helping overseas, doing stuff like that. But with police, you get to help like your community, your home, more local and stuff. So.
Doesn't help. It's going to have a pretty awesome car to drive around. Too.
that is true.
Yeah, you didn't seem excited about that.
I'm going to do a ride along with Stephen once he gets his car. I can't wait for that. That's going to be awesome.
What about you, Chris? What are you excited about when this transition from 911 to?
It's the same thing. It's sometimes you get to be that one person that helps somebody, and that's what matters. It's not always everybody, but at least it's somebody. So that opportunity to be out there to make a difference, no matter if it's one person, 5 people, 10 people, it doesn't matter. Just somehow make a difference to make things better for people.
That's awesome.
That's well said, sir.
Well, I'll tell you what, I feel good about my community. I feel good about my police department, and we're grateful. Thank you all for your service to our country and to our community.
And to the community. Yeah, they don't get that enough.
Absolutely. We're grateful. Thank you, Chief, for being here. It was awesome having you. Coming next week, John will still be on hiatus, but we're going to welcome some ring knockers.
Oh, well, I won't be here either.
It'll be all
It's going to be all new, all brand new, putting the pieces back
Miss
together.
Tammy's going to run the show with me. So we're going to have some folks from West Point here, and we're going to talk about what it takes to get into West Point and what's that all about. It's going to be an officer-related show. So,
Officer-related show.
Yeah.
Wow.
You've been listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together, presented by Purple Heart Homes. Thanks for being here, and we will see you next week.
You've been listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together with John Gallina and Brad Borders. Join us again next Tuesday at 8 a.m. and Saturday at 5 p.m. for Putting the Pieces Back Together.